I think most of you know I meet every Tuesday morning with the Republican leadership en masse, in Blanc, both House and Senate together. And we go over the priorities for the House and the Senate and the governor's office. And we found many, many times that our lists all look the same. The things that we wanted to achieve and the things that we thought were priorities for this legislative session. And I do very much the same thing every other week with the minority leadership from both sides of the rotunda. And so in sum, I would say it was a good legislative session. It was a successful legislative session for myself and my administration. Well, I think in general, balancing the budget without raising taxes or additional fees, obviously the reform package, the jobs package was important to me, especially in my efforts to continue to expand the economy to $60 billion. And so, and I would say I would give all of them equal weight. But obviously, for the state, being able to balance the budget without raising taxes has to be an achievement that a lot of states are envious of. Jobs has been a priority for quite some time, and even though we've seen some increase in revenues and we've seen some increase in the economy, some activity in the economy itself, some new activity in the economy itself, the fact that we still have 74,000 people in Idaho that are looking for a job, and it's just been very stubborn in order to try to get that number down. We had a surplus eliminator. And so, at $60 million, as I recall, about $46 million of that will go to public schools. There'll be another $3 million, maybe a little bit more than that, that will go to the colleges and universities and community colleges. That was the indication that we made when we had to cut public schools in 2009 and 2010. And I think we're fulfilling on that promise. There are some other things that I'd like to get back on track with the sales tax rebate for food costs. And there's some other areas. Obviously, we could always use that additional money. And, but I'm not going to spend that $60 million until June 30th. When I met with them early on in the year, I had suggested that we make a modification, and that is that we give them, instead of a sales tax rebate, that we give them an income tax credit. That way they're making money and paying money in to the system in order for them to earn that income tax credit. But the legislature decided to go another direction. Quite frankly, I'm one of those folks that believe that if you subsidize something forever, it's going to stay in existence forever, whether or not the economics or the marketplace itself would have it stay in existence. So I think it still gives them an earn-out time of 2 years to go, and those that want to take advantage will have the opportunity to make that capital commitment and to make those requests for rebate. There was a portion of that money that we were using to study our own healthcare needs in Idaho and what we could do, and how we could go forward with what is right for Idaho rather than what fits with Obamacare. And so that information that we have gathered to date is still going to be extremely helpful in deciding whether Idaho feels the need and wants to have the high-risk pool, the exchange pool, ourselves. And so we, Bill Deal, I think, and Dick Armstrong with Health and Welfare, both of those gentlemen were doing a great job of gathering the kind of information that says what are Idaho's needs, irrespective of what Obamacare tells us we can or can't do. What are Idaho's needs? And so I would have liked, and I was disappointed that we didn't receive at least a little bit more authority to spend to collect the balance of the information that we needed on establishing both the exchange and the high-risk pool. But that was my concern from 2 years ago. was that it would, there were those concerned, and there was folks that were concerned, and I'm not going to discount their concern, because maybe in certain legislative districts around the state, there were folks that were crossing over in an effort to pick a weak candidate from one party so that they would be running against a stronger candidate from another. And that was the whole genesis of this effort by certain folks in the Republican Party. And I've always been concerned about folks having to register for one party or another, because you know, I think that's their personal and their quiet decision that should be made on their own and without any accusations that a public record could be otherwise subjected to. As we speak, there are discussions or debates, you might say, going on in Washington, D.C. relative to the continuing resolution. And there's a very important amendment on that continuing resolution, which would delist the wolves in Idaho, in effect, do the exact same thing. That gives control back to the state and gives management back to the state and responsibility back to the state, where it should have been all along. And so I'm going to wait to treat that bill, and I'm not saying how I'm going on it, but I'm going to wait to treat that bill until I see the outcome, if I have the time, the outcome from Washington, D.C. I do have concerns about the separation of powers and in that bill, and it's usually not a prerogative, if you will, of the legislature to declare an emergency. That's up to the governor. And so it says I may, and it says they can. So we're still struggling with the legal nuances of that as well. Because of our successful management of the '09 wolf hunt in Idaho, we did the right thing. It was responsible. It was directed toward the reduction efforts that we were trying to make in the wolf population of Idaho. And I know that the new director of the Department of Fish and Game was intimately involved with putting that wolf hunt together. And so I think we've got a good boilerplate to be able to go forward with. But I am ready to sit down with the commission and discuss exactly how we go forward should the CR be successful. I'm very pleased with how successful I was, how successful this administration has been with this legislative session. As I reflect back on the state of the state, a lot of the things that I spoke to and gave shout outs for, we were successful in getting.